Hi, I'm Lisa from Lori's Country Cottage. Welcome to How Tuesday. Today we're going to look at Hotfix Adhesive. I'll show you how it works, plus we're going to do a little testing. Hotfix Adhesive is something that I've used before. When we first got it into the store, I made a couple projects with it and I really liked how it works and learned the tips and tricks to using Hotfix, but I haven't actually tested some of the claims that Hotfix makes, mostly that it is a permanent bond that you don't need to stitch, but you can wash it and it won't fray and it won't peel off your fabric. So today I've decided to make a little project and I'll let you know how Hotfix works, and then I'm going to wash it with my laundry several times and we'll see how it turns out. So let me tell you a little bit about Hotfix first. It is acid-free. As I said, they claim that no stitching is required once it's fused down. But if you do decide to stitch, let's say you like a satin stitch or a blanket stitch, it won't gum up your needle. So they say it's a permanent bond. It's also washable, and if you leave the edges raw, they claim that it won't fray. So when I make my sample, I'll do some stitching, but I'm going to leave some raw edges, and then we'll see what happens. Some really neat things about Hotfix is that you can use Hotfix with your fabric cutting system. So if you have a Cricut or a Scan and Cut, even an AccuQuilt, you can put Hotfix on the back of your fabric and run it through those machines to cut out your shapes. They also have sheets that you can put through inkjet printers. So let's say you were doing an applique with a whole bunch of flowers, you could print the flower motif on the back of the Hotfix and you wouldn't have to trace them all. So here's how it works. Just like other Fusible products. Actually, let me tell you how it's different than other Fusible products. Most of the other products are fusible web. So there are fibers, a webbing on the back. This is different. This is just adhesive on the back of a paper, which feels similar to wax paper. So it's different in that way. And that's important if you're using one of your cutting machines. The machine doesn't need to work with both the fibers of your fabric and then the fibers of your webbing. So it's a little bit different that way. But other than that, it works the same as other Fusible products. So I traced a flower on the back of the Hotfix with a fine point Sharpie marker. So one of the things about that kind of waxy film is that a regular ballpoint pen didn't work. A pencil worked okay, but I thought I might not be able to see it. So I used a Sharpie on the paper side of the adhesive product. Now on the roll, it actually says draw on this side. So it tells you which side it is. The other side, you can see the glue. So I've drawn my flower. I'm going to take this to my ironing surface. I've got my applique pressing sheet already because I don't want any glue on my iron or my woolly felted mat. So Hotfix directions suggest that you put the glue side up, then your wrong side of your fabric down, and to press that for 10 to 15 seconds just to secure it. Once it's secure, you'll flip it over and then iron right on the Hotfix. And here's another place where it's different from other adhesive products. You need to press on a cotton setting, no steam, for 30 to 40 seconds, which feels like an eternity. But when I first used Hotfix, I learned that that was the trick to the success of Hotfix. Other Fusible products you can press for 5, 10, 15 seconds and they're done. Hotfix needs some time. So I'm going to now press from this side. It also says that you can slide your iron. Normally we would do an up and down motion, but once you've kind of attached it in the first step like this, then they say you can slide your iron. So 30 to 40 seconds. to really get that adhesive activated. Then you need to let it completely cool. So not warm, completely cool. Once it's cool, I'm going to take this and cut out my flower shapes, and then I'll be able to peel the paper backing off, put it onto my other piece of fabric, and then 15 to 20 seconds of pressing again with that hot cotton iron will be enough to adhere it to my fabric. So I'm going to play around a bit with something fun. I'm only making a 10-inch square, but I am going to put some batting and backing. I'm going to quilt it. I'm going to do satin stitch. I'll do some blanket stitch. I'll leave some raw edges, and I'll do some raw edge stitching. Then we'll come back and see how the Hotfix worked. Did it gum up my needle? Did I have any problems? So let me go make my little flower picture, and then we'll come back and talk about how everything worked. Okay, here's my little sample, and I'll show you what I've done. First of all, the two purple squares are both fused down with the Hotfix. This one is not stitched at all. It's completely raw, but it is sealed all the way to the edge. This one, I've done a satin stitch, a blanket stitch, and then just a raw edge stitch, and then I've left this edge unstitched. So we'll see what happens with those sharp points and raw edges when it gets washed. Then I applicate a flower on each one, and this one I edge stitched all the way around, so we'll see if it frays or how well it looks after washing. And this one is fused down, and I did satin stitch and then a fancy zigzag, and I don't think you'll be able to see the stitching on the camera right now, but I did an edge stitch here, and then I moved my edge stitch in quite a bit. So we'll see if this edge lifts, and then I left this completely raw. And then for these other two, I fused two pieces of fabric together, and I just stitched them down because I want to see what happens when it moves and when people handle it. And I did the same thing for this. I left points because points will react differently than curves, and I see this point's a little bit fuzzy. Oh, it was just a piece of fuzz. So I've got, and then I layered it with batting and backing, and I just stitched it down. So now here comes the experiment part. I'm going to, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, wash this with my laundry in every load. I'll keep track of how often I wash and dry it, and I will put it in the dryer, and we'll see what happens in a couple weeks. So let's take a short commercial break, and I'll be back to show you the results of washing the Hotfix after it's fused, whether it's stitched or not stitched.
One eternity later.
Welcome back. It's been several weeks since I shot the last video, and I've been including this sampler in with my laundry. So it's been washed 8 times and dried 5 times. Regular laundry soap with my wash loads, and I don't use fabric softener in my dryer. I just use dryer balls. So that's how it was washed and dried. I'm going to zoom the camera in, and we'll take a look and see what the results are. All right, let's take a look at the results. First, I'll go over what I did. This purple is simply fused to the background. This flower is fused. I did satin stitch, a zigzag, and then I drew a dark line where I just did some edge stitching, so along the edge, and then I went inside, and then this has no stitching whatsoever. On this piece, satin stitch, blanket stitch, straight stitch, and again, no stitching. This is just fused down. And then my flower, I just did an edge stitch, so those are raw edges. And then for these 2 pieces, it's 2 pieces of fabric fused together with the Hotfix, and then I just attach them in the middle. So let's look first at fabric fused to fabric. So that's this purple square and this edge on this one. They are absolutely perfect. No fraying at all on any of those, and completely stuck down. Even the corners are completely stuck down. I should mention that I did have to iron these two pieces so they were flat. They were all curled up. So I did iron those just to flatten them. But these raw edges are completely perfect. And if you look on the flower, same thing. This fabric fused to fabric is completely perfect, whether I stitched away from the edge or I was right on the edge. And these edges are completely sealed. You can see my stiletto doesn't go underneath at all. Then on this flower with the edge stitching, again, no fraying at all. I'm completely impressed. No fraying where the satin stitch is, but we wouldn't expect that. There's the blanket stitch, no fraying. Straight stitch, no fraying. And I'll just show you with my stiletto that it is fused right to the edge. It hasn't lifted at all. So I would call that 100% success. I don't know what kind of project I would do that had applique that I would wash it that much. The most I could think is a table runner, and I would just wash that occasionally. So let's take a look at these other two samples. It's curious because this was what sold us on the Hotfix product when we saw it at Quilt Market. He had a heart shape like this where he had two pieces of fabric fused together. Hundreds of people had touched it, and it had no fraying along the edge. You can see my piece has some fraying, and that showed up in the very first wash. It hasn't worsened at all. That's exactly what it looked like after the first wash. And then if you look at the square, same thing. There's fraying all the way around. And I would say this got a little worse every time I washed it. So why do I think that is? Well, I think I didn't fuse it enough. I don't think the problem is the Hotfix. I think the problem is that I didn't fuse it enough. Now, having said that, I don't know when I would ever fuse two pieces of fabric together and leave it raw and wash it. I can't even think of an application where I would do that. So those are the results of washing Hotfix with the raw edges and stitched down. I am completely impressed. I hope you enjoyed learning about Hotfix. And I hope if you've ever had an applique project that you really wanted to do, but decided not to try it because you just didn't want to stitch around all those pieces, now you'll go pull out that pattern and use Hotfix and enjoy the process of applique. Hotfix has become my go-to fusible product. I really enjoy it, and it works well for all the projects I've done before. And the fact that you can now use it on a washable project and not have to do the stitching, well, that's a game changer. Thanks for joining me for How Tuesday, and I hope you'll try Hotfix in your next applique project.